We often talk about the challenge our service members and their families face. But there's one challenge that tends to turn those challenges into a crisis. Perhaps the greatest challenge our warriors face is isolation. Our country has produced great resources to help our warriors face almost every need. But in a moment of crisis, if a warrior is isolated, they have no hope of accessing that help. Facing a crisis, even broken to the point of suicide, what is a warrior supposed to do? Our government throws out billions of dollars and a revolving list of new programs and treatments, but each year, the statistics grow worse. The low estimate is that 22 warriors take their own life each day, and that's not counting all of the veterans or many of the accidental overdoses. The Warrior's Journey has long recognized that the real solution is warriors helping warriors. Every warrior needs a healthy warrior that they can turn to for help. That's how we beat isolation. We've been innovating new ways for warriors to connect through our connector system. We've done that online, over the phone, and I've handed out thousands of connection cards on bases and on ships. But we've also been piloting new ways to create spaces for warriors to connect. It's possible because of veterans and local communities who are willing to do the hard work of breaking isolation and saving lives. What they need from us is just a little help. Tim Carentz knows firsthand the challenges our warriors face. Serving at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, Tim flew hundreds of missions into the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan to rescue wounded warriors. But the challenge of that trauma and the pace of that work took its toll on Tim. And just like he fought to save lives on the battlefield, he's still fighting. Tim has moved back to Germany and opened a Resiliency Center and a coffee shop near the base where he served. And the Warrior's Journey has been partnering with him in that work since day one. In fact, I'm going to let Tim tell you his story.
So I grew up in a German household. My grandfather was German, his wife was German. And so I don't know why, but Germany stayed in my heart. And so when I go to join the Air Force in 1994 and they say, write down your 10 choices, where do you want to go? I just wrote Germany, 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 Germany. They granted that wish in 2003, right at the height of the war. During my 7 years here, we had about 25,000 critically wounded. Anybody who was injured, my hands were on them, keep moving from patient to patient, and it really doesn't kick in until you begin to settle down. When I left Germany in 2003, I got my dream job teaching trauma critical care in Cincinnati for the Air Force, and the pace slowed down significantly. I started to have some issues with sleeping. During that time, I was actually doing a missions trip to India, and when I landed in Germany to fly back to the States, I had 2 missed calls. First message was from a colleague that I was very close to, and he said, Tim, I need to speak to you, and please give me a call back as soon as you can. My next call was a friend of mine said, hey, I'm not sure if you saw your colleague's Facebook page. He said he tried to reach out to you, you weren't there for him, and he killed himself. And then the plane takes off. And I think at that moment, I was able to really begin to suffer, filled with anguish, not just over my colleague, but some of the other things as well. So when I came back to Cincinnati, I said I wanted to be seen. I'm not sleeping well. I just used that as a code word for everything is messed up. Immediately, the provider said, hey, your colleague just took his life. You do the same job, and now you're not sleeping. And I don't even want you going back to that trauma center. And immediately pulled me out. I've never flown again, never put hands on a patient again. It was kind of sad that they just say, since you have that diagnosis, you have to get out. And so you can see from many of the veterans today, maybe they come forward for help and they're immediately out of their job and they don't know how to reintegrate, and many choose to give up, or to maybe that looks like turning to alcohol or drugs or taking their life. So I was sleep deprived. So they give me medication to fall asleep, to stay asleep, and not to have nightmares. But if I do have nightmares, that I don't have nightmares. And then medication to wake up and to stay awake. My mind was racing all day. Was medication for that. And then I would have hypervigilance. So they have a shot for that. And so before I knew it, I'm on about 26 different medications. I was sent away 3 times against my will for 30, 45 days. look at all the harm that I'm causing with fits of rage. And believe it or not, the number one challenge that just seems to surface all the time is isolation. For example, I didn't want to go food shopping. I'd be triggered in the grocery store. I remember this one time I'm pushing the cart and there's a woman who's opening up the freezer door to take something out. The door closes and I hear boom, boom. And about that time, her baby begins to cry. Both of those were triggers. I've heard very young babies crying for their life. I'm standing there in the grocery store aisle and I see the hallway in the hospital. And I need to run to get the equipment and resuscitate this child. I'm having chest pain and I feel like I'm going to throw up, so I just leave the commissary, so I just stay home. I didn't eat for about 30 days. And so sometimes isolation is, I don't want to be triggered. I remember one time I was ready to take my life, and I pull out my phone and I have thousands of contacts, but nobody to call. I was isolated. And so I realized from that moment moving forward, I'm going to make sure that I'm surrounded by like-minded warriors, those who have been through something similar. That way we can hold each other up. And so I leave. I know that I'm coming back to Germany. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I knew that I wanted to be there for the military families, not just the ones who are wounded physically, but spiritually wounded, emotionally wounded. Spending time with the Lord actually gave me a dream that it was this building here. So then I began preparing, okay, I'm going to open up a cafe. These things start coming together. And I just started thinking about how am I going to get my hands on some resources? It could take me years. Everything from pamphlets and brochures to booklets and books. And how am I going to create a website? And this is exactly one of the strengths of the Warrior's Journey. So they come alongside and said, hey, you're opening a center? We got resources. And I think from that moment on, we actually came as one, and then we opened. And then that pace is just significantly amplified from there. We may see 3 to 5 people every day contemplating suicide. You go to book an appointment with a psychologist, you may see them once a month, but you can check in here at one of these centers daily. It works. It may just be just a few thousand square feet, but then it has tentacles reaching into the community. I remember we were sitting here in the cafe, and we have a lady who's sitting at the table, and she has her planner out on a table. Her 4 kids are playing over here in the kids area of the cafe, and I just asked her, I said, what are you planning? She said, well, my grandfather killed himself on Christmas. My dad killed himself on my birthday, and I'm looking for a day, and it looks like tomorrow. We sit down, we talk, we get to know her. She invites me to her first responder unit on base. And we have about 20 leaders. They're sitting in a circle. And I said, who's thought about giving up in the last 2 weeks? And one hand at a time is going up. There's a full bird colonel sitting next to me, just starts crying. And then her hand goes up and says, every day, please help. And we see this across the base. Not only are you getting the attention of the active duty member, but you're getting the attention of their spouse, of their children, of their family. We did a survey for 1,000 military wives, 69% thinking about suicide daily. And so we come together and we hold each other up. We talk about our week. We're bringing the community together to reach the community.
I joined the military in 2000, and all from that military, I was addict. Here I got plugged in with CR, Celebrate Recovery. That's where my life's been turned around here. It's an oasis, and you can come here and literally find family. Like, I've been accepted in ways that I never thought possible.
I know how tough the military can be, so they really helped me to find that community.
I had a friend that I worked with, and she invited me one night, and I enjoyed it. It was amazing to see how I could still have a family overseas, and from there it just spiraled. I just met more and more people and got involved with more and more things.
When my husband has some of the soldiers that have problems, he immediately connect them to this place because he knows they are going to find someone here. Like, no matter if it's morning, afternoon, or evening.
This cafe here changed our life just to be able to immediately get plugged in. And for me, I got an automatic family.
I think it's great that it's a resource outside of the base. For me personally, being able to come to an outside organization and not feel that my command is going to be involved in any way.
What I would say is thank you. And it absolutely serves this military community and in such an impactful way that I just can't put into words.
So now we want to share it. We want to take it elsewhere. And you do it your own way. It doesn't have to be a cafe. It could be a bowling alley. It could be an archery range. It could be a gun club. You bring the veterans together, partnering with the Warrior's Journey. You share whatever vision is placed on your heart, and we see how we can massage that into a reality. In fact, it's a personal goal of ours that we will not give up until we reach every military family member, the active duty, the guard, the reserve, the spouse, their child. And so though we see millions of people who are impacted, we're just going to reach one at a time. But it really must be a grassroots movement with and through you and your community leaders, and with the Warrior's Journey.
Tim's story is just the start. His hard work in Germany has been inspiring more veterans to take up this cause. In fact, Larry and Ashley King have already opened up a coffee shop near McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas. We have individuals at Fort Bliss who we're talking to for the opportunity to maybe open a center there. We have people in Japan who have been inspired to start something at Yokota Air Force Base. We have those at Fort Humphrey in South Korea. Really, the possibilities are endless. A resiliency center doesn't have to be a coffee shop. A resiliency center is anywhere where warriors can meet to find community and overcome the challenge of isolation. Right here in Springfield, Missouri, our new office sees warriors walking in almost every day. Veterans like Tim are doing the hard work, intervening in complex and seemingly impossible situations every day to save lives. You may not feel like you could do what they do, but you don't have to. Veterans are standing up to fight for their own warrior brothers and sisters. All they need is a little help, the right resources, some initial funding, and the knowledge that we have their backs. Together, we can turn around the statistics. We can save warrior lives. Warriors helping warriors. That's how we'll do it together.